Alright everybody, welcome to Han and Chewie speed drawing with commentary. Joining me today is Brandon, Cosbro, Lead Heavy James. Say hello.
Hello.
So Brandon, basically what I'm doing here is you see me drawing Han and Chewie.
Alright.
Alrighty, this is
on traditional paper.
On traditional paper. Let me give people a little info. So what you're seeing, the paper's, I think this is B marker paper, but that's kind of irrelevant. I did the sketch digitally in Photoshop. Just kind of blocked in their basic look. Nothing super heavy, rough face. The belt pouch, his little belt strap is actually just a solid piece of black, a couple of squares marked in. And then I printed the whole thing out, including my little sketch paper template, in light blue. Actually, it printed a little darker than normal because you normally can't see most of the blue. Here it's really evident. I don't like the blue to be very heavy. You've seen, Brandon, you ever seen people when they are going to ink pencils, they print out the blue and it's super...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
just big blocky shapes, and you see a lot of it.
And I get that, but for me, my sketches aren't fully drawn. They're just enough that's there. And I finished the drawing on the page, so this was
right,
a
like
little...
like a loose silhouette, kind of.
Yeah, this was annoying to look at for me. But I didn't feel like reprinting it out, so I just went on with it. You know, I'm like, whatever. Eventually I'll tune it out. So, but I'm drawing with red mechanical pencil lead here, blocking in. You can see I'm drawing through all the belt straps. And then I'll ink with Copic multiliners, which I found in my drawing phase I kind of prefer to do because it's easy to make round shapes and stuff. You don't have to dip the ink.
So you'll start inking before you even finish the whole drawing?
Oh god, yeah. I just get the drawing enough so where everything lines up, and then I try to finish the drawing in ink. That's basically what I was taught when I was a kid, like talking to McFarlane and those guys when they were at Comic-Con back in the day. They did the whole pages in ink. Like they just broke down the page with pencil and they draw the rest in ink because there's no time to do a fully illustrated page and then ink it line per line, you know?
It just seems like double effort then at that point.
Yeah, and I hate that anyway. I'm not drawing this thing 8 fucking times. So at every stage, I try to just draw what needs to be there. In this case, the drawing's being done with ink. Now, in this case, I'm mostly using 0.03 and 0.05. In this case, pretty much 0.03 for the initial lines. I ink very technically, like the way I draw, basically. Like it's not exactly a thick and thin. It's just like drawing with a pencil in a lot of different ways. So something else I want to say too here, Brandon. I have no interest in drawing characters from movies where they look exactly like the actor.
Right.
Some people have, most of the people have been very complimentary to me concerning the Star Wars art. But you do get the one or two people who are like, that's not fucking Han Solo. It doesn't look like Harrison Ford. I'm like, I don't, we associate Han Solo with Harrison Ford now, but in 20 years from now, we won't.
Right.
Catch my drift? 20 years from now.
You'll have the origin stories, the remake. There'll be so much difference then.
Yeah, eventually it's going to be like Batman. How many versions of Batman are there? In 100 years, right? There's so many different versions. So,
and everyone has their favorite, and everyone has their, it should look like this.
Yeah, so for me, it needs to just basically make sure it hits the essence of the character. Because from like my two favorite Star Wars comics of all time are the Star Wars manga from the first movie, New Hope, the first 4 volumes of that, and the Heir to the Empire. I have these giant European books, but there's these first 2 books. Valentine, I think is the guy's name, and he had a very angular kind of Mignola style to his art. I really loved the look of it, and and none of those look like the movie actors, I might add.
Right.
They're just his drawings.
Yeah, but even with a drawing, you could have more, like this, obviously more expression, more magic life to it than you could just him standing there with his mouth barely open. This has that real raw, I'm ready to battle. Fun
story. I did this piece of Star Wars art back in 2003. Remember the chick with the blue Twilight Jedi? Twilight. She's in Revenge of the Sith. You see her in the Mushroom Planet. So I did this one Clone Wars piece where she's fighting a bunch of stormtroopers, and I have her hand blocking the laser blast, right? And I drew it in kind of an animated style. And I was at the Wizard World the year before I met you, and some of the Star Wars editors saw that, and they're like, wow, you ever draw like in the Clone Wars style? Like, I'm like, oh, you mean the cartoon? They're like, yeah. I'm like, no. And they just were like so offended by my no. that they never
They
talked to
were?
me again. Yeah, they were very. They're like, I would never do that. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, I'm too good for that.
I don't. That wasn't it. It's just I don't want to draw like that. So I would want more detail. But I think I
No, I
taught
know, I'm
myself
saying-
how to job. Yeah.
Maybe they thought you were too good for it when it's more in fact that you just like to add a lot of detail. I mean, you have good constructive shapes, but you still like your detail like this where you got the pouches and the straps, and it's not just one big strip. There's actual depth to it.
Now,
as to where that would just be, if that was a show, it'd be one thick silver thing.
Right, I'm going to cut you off, but I do want to mention here, the process you see me drawing here, folks, is I block it in with red pencil lead, finish it in ink, and then you see me shading it with red lead, and then shading it with pencil. There's a reason for this. One, it looks cool when you get the commission. You buy the piece of art, it's got some color to it. But really, the fact of the matter is, this is going to be colored with Copic markers. And what I'll do is scan this art in, grayscale it, sometimes tint the lines purpley, reddish color, whatever, and then print it back out. And so what happens is that red mechanical lead becomes a very light gradient. The 2H lead that I'm shading with becomes a darker mid-tone, and if I add HV lead, it becomes the darkest. So when I print it back out, all the tones are already worked out. The shading, the value is worked out. So when I use the Copics, I can just blend the colors and whatnot. So it's easier for me to see that red than it is to find maybe a 4H or a 6H. You know what I mean? Like plus it just looks more dynamic, I think, with the colors. That's really the whole point of it, folks. Is that and this means I don't have to add tons of Copics to do all the rendering. It's kind of already figured out by the time I get to the Copic stage. And then here I'm drawing the bowcaster. And a little bit you're going to see me bust out a straight edge, which I normally don't do. But that bowcaster, like I was afraid I'd fuck up the lines.
Right, and then if it's curved wrong or...
Well, really it's just that straight edge going from his hands all the way back. If I was like, if it's uneven, I'm never going to fucking hear the end of it. Yeah, see, there it is. Straight edge. And I'll actually use that straight edge with the pen, which is, you never see me do, but people freak out over the Star Wars.
I was going to say, that's risky there.
Yeah. I don't care. I mean, I can draw it without it, but I was like, well, if I fuck up the line, I mean, it wouldn't look any more different than if I just freehanded it. So, to be perfectly honest, the rule is if you have to go across a third of the page, you should use a straight edge. So here I'm drawing the. Go ahead.
I didn't know that. I didn't know there was a.
Yeah, the longer out you go, the less accurate it is. Anyhow, so you see me inking. I like to ink from things that are in the foreground to the back. So even though I've blocked in his bowcaster, I've drawn through a lot of objects, and now I'm finishing the drawing with the inks, adding a bunch of tick marks, adding all the stuff. But you can see it starts in the front, and then I'll only draw as much hand as that's needed, right? I'll only draw as much thumb or as much fingernail as needed. And obviously I ink as I go along, which for some reason throws people off. I don't know why. I get that question all the time. So you ink this while you're... I'm like, I wouldn't even call it inking. I'm drawing the drawing with ink. I don't know if inking's quite the word for it.
If you know where you're going with the shapes and you know what you're trying to build, I mean, at that point it's pretty easy. It'd be different if you were trying to make the actual silhouettes in ink and then try to build on top of that. But you have all the shapes kind of laid out anyway, so it's just a matter of, pens, needles, bolts. If that makes
Yeah, but
sense.
you could still fill in shade. I would just block it in with pencil first and then fill it in with big blocks of ink. I'm not a big silhouette black shadow guy, So I guess the comics I spent more time reading, were like the Turtles, which didn't have a lot of shadows actually, if you remember the initial stuff. Some panels, but there wasn't a ton of that. Shadows really play into monthly comics because they speed up time. But a lot of the books I also read too, like Akira, everything was drawn in Akira. I was like, yeah, I can draw Akira. Anyhow, I know. Delusions of grandeur. Brandon, you have any questions about this process?
Yeah, I know you don't like to work off like movie references, but things like, let's say this crossbow.
Yes.
Did you take reference off?
I make sure that they're prop accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at least you have the props open and such like that.
When I say not work for movie reference, what I mean is I'm not taking a photo of Chewbacca and drawing over Chewbacca.
Right.
Redrawing an exact photo of a bow. Like I had to find a bowcaster in the exact position. That's not what I did. But I have reference of the bowcaster, so in the roughy stage, so that way it's accurate. Because people will freak if the fucking thing isn't
Yeah.
doesn't have a strap or like whatever
How long did it take you just to draw him? Like how long? Because I know it's sped up, but how long is this like?
This whole thing took between 5 and 6 hours, so probably about 2 or 3 hours per character. That's talking on the internet and taking my time. This thing is sped up 12 times. I found that if I speed these videos up more than 12, people can't tell what's going on. I get nauseous. That's why we're doing commentaries now, because I'm like, well, now the videos take between 15 and 30 minutes, but
right.
I figured the audio commentary might help.
Did you do you prefer drawing like animal type creatures like this, or do you prefer like a more human?
No, I like it. I'll just lean more towards an animated animal. I'd rather draw something that's more Disney-esque, but with my kind of details, than redrawing a photo of, say, Chewbacca or a tiger. I'd rather draw an animated tiger. Look, I like cartoons, man. And for some fucking reason in this country, if you draw cartoons, or you, like me, like, here's the thing. You can draw cartoons now so long as you don't have line art. They have to be, like, all those painted things where they're, like, three-dimensional. They almost look like, the Disney movie Tangled and shit. They look like 3D models more than drawings. Like, I'm just always surprised when, right? You know what I mean? Like, people are like, oh, you're not afraid. I got this. You're not afraid to show lines. I'm like, that's a fear now? Like, we gotta, like, I don't have 1 million views, so maybe it's holding me back. But you ever see
like inking is forbidden,
right? Or I don't know, because I don't have like that American style DC Marvel style inking going on here. So here I'm adding a thick outline around Chewie. That's using a Stabilo pen, which I always jump between Stabilos and Copics or whatnot. But the Stabilo pens are pretty cheap. They're just not Copic or waterproof, so you can't use them when you're actually going to Copic over them. They'll smear. But they're pretty durable. Like I used to use them to go over the watercolors because you could put them over the watercolor paper or even the watercolor surface and they won't wreck the nib. Those things are almost indestructible. But they're not waterproof, so you ever touch those things with the Copic or water, they fucking bleed everywhere.
What and it almost looks like a ballpoint pen. Like
now I use a lot of ballpoint for like halftones and stuff. Again, you can't use ballpoint and then go back over it with Copics because they'll bleed water. They'll run down the page. But I do add a little thick and thin. I add some thicks around there to block in. I'm playing more with shadows and line weights and stuff now. The problem is I'm not a brush guy, like in terms of inks, where you take a brush and you have that loose, sumi, thick and thin. I still like a technical line. I like all the lines, man. I like lines, Brandon.
No, I know, and I actually, when I went to the art store to get calligraphy ink today, I actually bought for the first time ever a crow quill pen. So that when I do my like white highlights, they're a little sharper because I still haven't got the brush down quite right, and it has a weird thickness to it. It gets kind of too thick, too clumpy. So I figured I would try an actual crow quill pen to give it a sharper look after watching all your stuff doing with the crow quill over the weekend and on these videos. So hopefully it helps.
I did like 12 paintings last weekend, by the way. I did the math.
Really?
Yeah, my hand's been sore all week. I won't lie. You saw me. I painted for 3 days straight. I did not stop,
Right.
Trying to paint drop paint. So here I am working on Han Solo, and this is the one where most people go, oh, it's cool. But I do get the few people who are like, that's not fucking Harrison Ford. I can't wait to see who plays him in the prequel Han Solo movie or whatever, so we can get out of this.
I hope we get somebody totally...
I hope it's the guy from Kingsman. The guy from Kingsman...
Oh, yeah. He's good. I was going to say like a Zac Efron, but yeah.
No. The guy from Kingsman would be perfect.
No, I'm not saying perfect. I mean like just total opposite of Harrison Ford, where he's like the super pretty boy look.
Yeah, but I think about it like, Chris Pine has a bit of that William Shatner, but he's not a William Shatner lookalike. Remember, like, people are like, you gotta get Matt Damon. He looks kind of like William Shatner. Like, I don't,
He's too old.
Well, now, but believe me, you've been hearing about that for a long time.
Yeah, I like the guy from Kingsman.
So here I always try to get the faces first, and then I'll work out his hand and get that blaster and shit going. It's just a lot of, this drawing's pretty easy. It's a lot of, that's Pentel red mechanical egg. It's just a lot of the same thing over and over.
I think sometimes when I see you draw like characters with like lots of hair on their head, it reminds me a little bit of anime. Like you can see your more anime influence in it.
Oh, I have a strong Capcom influence. Like I grew up, like for me, the best looking things were Capcom games, and when the Street Fighter games came out, the art books and shit, and Darkstalkers, and you know, somewhere between that, and then I would, you know, like anime and fucking. But I never wanted the giant anime faces, you know. So somewhere between that and, you know, Jim Lee or even McFarlane had a very animated style to him. If you look back in the '90s, yeah, McFarlane's characters were very animated. They weren't realistic looking at all. So now everyone looks like Steve McNiven. I don't know why.
Or tries to.
Tries to, yeah. That's the look.
Does he wear gloves in the movie?
Yes.
I was like, oh man, I like those gloves. That's a cool touch. But I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, so I can't remember whether or not he's got those gloves on.
He's got them. He's wearing them too, I think, during the when they're shooting on the TIE fighters in A New Hope.
Really? I never noticed that.
Yeah.
See, and it's a good thing you added them, because I'm sure if you didn't, there would be people saying, why didn't you add his gloves? Why don't you have this certain jacket?
Some people won't know he even has, because they come on and off, but yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I've never noticed it, but when you penciled this, did you use the lead holder, or were you using a mechanical pencil?
The mechanical pencil. I use the lead holder now for the watercolors, because red mechanical lead does not go well with watercolors. So I have to flip. So when I'm doing line arts, I use the red mechanical lead, and I use the Copics. When I have to do, and then I'll print it back out and trace it in ink. If I have to do a con saucy or convention saucy, I have to use the pen holder to sketch.
Do you ever feel like the difference in the weight? Because I know if I
but if you do enough of these, Brandon, like go ahead, you're gonna say.
I was gonna say when I go from when we were at the con and I was you brought my lead holder and I used the red mechanical pencil, I kept breaking the lead because I wasn't used to the pressure, I guess.
Yeah, I've learned to not press so hard, but that came from drawing on a Cintiq, and you haven't really drawn on a Cintiq yet. Like I know you think you have, but you haven't. So over the next few years, we'll get you drawing properly on there, and you're going to learn to not press very hard at all. I'll show you techniques.
Right. So it's a good lesson for people artists watching, to kind of, I'd say, draw softer and just build up the lines instead of trying to push hard right away and darken the lines. Because that's what I had to do when I was drawing with the red mechanic. I just built the lines up. I would draw it until it built up.
I'm drawing the final lines with the pen, so the mechanical pencil's there to build up the shapes and get the construction down, and then I'm drawing the final lines with the pen. You don't have to press hard with the pen because your lines just flow out.
Right.
So, but I gave myself carpal tunnel back in 2008 from pressing too hard. So I've had to. It was either, learn to press lightly or die, I've had so many drawing-related injuries, it's crazy, man. I pulled my shoulder out from leaning too hard. I couldn't do push-ups for a year and a half from leaning on my arm when I was using the Cintiq. And I got the Cintiq to get rid of my carpal tunnel, but then I pulled my shoulder out from leaning on it too hard. Yeah, and then my feet swole up from not leaving the seat enough. Once I started working from home, I wasn't walking enough. That was interesting. All those things they never teach you about.
Right, you got all these injuries. People are like, oh, what do you do? Play football on the weekends? No, I'm an artist.
You know what's sad is these lines always look cool when you see them, but then if you try to color these lines verbatim in the computer, that it doesn't work out. I always end up having to retrace the lines. The closest thing would be that recent Casey Jones I did, where I colored the lines, and that's the first time I've gotten it to work right. But it's a lot of effort. I don't know why. There's something about the way mechanical lines scan in. There's something they lose.
Like the darkness, or you mean like just the actual flow?
The flow of it, yeah. Maybe I'm just not a very good colorist. I mean, that might be it too. I'm not the best colorist, man. There's plenty of people out there better than me. My favorite part is drawing the blaster. I enjoy that. No ellipse tool, just draw some fucking circles, dog.
If you mess up, I mean, you could always fix in Photoshop.
And if you mess up, just color it with Copics. It's very forgiving. You see how people, you know what I mean? Once you color with the Copics, yeah. You draw that knee's not so perfect. Once you color in Copics, oh, it looks amazing. They don't care. All right, Brandon. So we're gonna head out of here. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook at Lead Heavy, Lead Heavy.
And always, folks, next up will be the Han and Chewie Copic coloring. We'll be doing that here in a couple days. So join us back in for that. As always, subscribe to the channel, see me on Facebook, leave your comments below, and we'll see you on the next SketchCraft Speed Paint. Bye.